Welcome to Disruptive Successor, a show for next generation leaders in family businesses and entrepreneurs who want to disrupt the status quo and take their existing business to a whole new level. We all know that what got us here isn't going to get us there. This show will provide inspiration, advice, and resources to help you create massive impact. This podcast is sponsored by myself, Jonathan Goldhill, and my company, the Goldhill Group, where we provide coaching for growing companies. I'm Jonathan Goldhill, and my purpose is simple: to guide entrepreneurial leaders in family businesses towards more freedom and fulfillment. I want entrepreneurs to get clarity around the changes that will make them and their businesses more successful so they can experience the same freedom I've enjoyed in my life. Our proven practices challenge business owners to think differently about their business and how they're running it, and quite literally become game changers in our clients' companies. Learn more at thegoldhillgroup.com website, where you can schedule your free strategy session. Hi, it's Jonathan Goldhill, and welcome back to another episode of the Disruptive Successor Show. My guest today is Scott Snider, a returning guest who was with me 3 years ago for episode 30, where he talked about exiting his landscape company at age 24 to then becoming president of his family-run business, the Exit Planning Institute. A next-generation leader in his family business, his dad, Chris Snider, has been in transition mode for the past several years. Scott today is not only the president of the Exit Planning Institute, but also the operating partner of Snider Premier Growth, a small family investment company. At EPI, Scott is responsible for the strategic direction of the organization, along with overseeing the company's operations and chapter development. Since joining EPI, Scott has expanded the organization regionally, nationally, and globally, providing a transformational educational experience to advisors from all specialties across the globe. The value acceleration methodology developed by his father, Chris, is also the title of Chris's book, which has been the foundation for teaching owners about exit planning and running a significant company. Well, I want to welcome you back to the show today, Scott.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I can't believe it was 3 years ago. That's wild.
Can you believe it?
A lot has changed.
Yeah, a lot has changed, I'm sure. You'll tell us about it. And as you recall, maybe from our last show, we mostly focused on your landscaping company and transitioning out of that. I know it seems like a dog's age ago or two dogs' age ago, but, so I want you to tell us a little bit about EPI. But first, I'm going to ask you the $64,000 question, which is, to you and me, exit planning seems like a pretty important topic that anyone who's a boomer, baby boomer, that is, in their 60s, which your dad is got to be thinking about the importance of exit planning. And yet it's almost like planning is a dirty word to business owners.
Yeah.
And so, it's the last thing they seem to want to talk about, so many of them. So from your perspective, why is exit planning so important to business owners?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was just kind of telling this story this morning. So you'll see a lot of our in our presentations today, in our white papers, we talk about this very simple thing that you and I and frankly our listeners probably hear about all the time. There's a difference between success and significance. And so I think, and I'd answer it this way: I think many business owners, and particularly to your point, the baby boomer business owner, if you ask them if they feel successful in what they have built at their company, I think that they proudly say, absolutely, yes. We have great people. We have great customers. I have relationships with a lot of our customers. We have a strong balance sheet, strong P&L. We have a meaningful product and service. And when they go to transition that company, they're kind of slapped across the face for the first time because somebody's called their baby ugly. And what they've said is that you've spent decades maybe growing this company with income basically in mind, but you've never transitioned any of that to long-term value. And so what you've done is create something that's very successful, but not necessarily something that's very significant. And so what I think is interesting about that, you kind of have this aha moment as an owner to say, shoot, I think I missed it a little bit. So I do have a very successful company that gave me a very great lifestyle over the years, and maybe a lifestyle for many people. But now I'm having a struggle selling it, or maybe I can't sell it for what I need to close my wealth gap. And so I think when you think about it in maybe those more simpler terms, it's absolutely critical that we're blending with income and value in mind, short-term success and long-term significance. And I'd also say that the conversation I was having this morning was around the unplanned exit. So for many owners, I think we're like, we think we're like Superman, that nothing's ever going to happen. But we know that you and I know that we're affected by death, partner disputes and disagreements, disabilities, and other things that destroy or force us to exit. But I will say that it is changing. So I would agree with you. If you studied the State of Owner Readiness Survey, came out with new research in 2023 at the end, we debuted it actually this year in February. It would show that the baby boomers are still, they've made a lot of progress over the last 10 years, but still certainly struggle with exit planning. Whereas people in their 50s, 40s, and 30s are much more receptive to planning with the end in mind. I think those folks will likely be, particularly in their 40s and 30s, will be like boomerang exits, meaning that they'll buy and grow or start and grow several companies and have multiple exits along their way. So the mentality and amongst the generations and demographics are changing. But I think that very simply put, yeah, I mean, I think exit planning is important because we have to be planning for the end in mind. So we'll all eventually exit in some form.
Exactly. All right. So let's back up and talk about EPI. Like,
Sure.
what is it? What's its purpose? What's its growth story? Its origins, history. Give us the background.
Yeah, so the Exit Planning Institute is an education company and a community for professional advisors that look to strengthen their relationship with business owners. And so we provide conferences, content, community, credentials, courses all around helping the owner or helping the professional advisor understand more about what it takes to grow a company of significance and then their role. And so the thing that we're probably most known for is the Certified Exit Planning Advisor credential, what we call the CEPA credential. There's about 7,000 CEPAs across the United States, but we're really a community of about 20,000 professional advisors that interact in some way, shape, or form to now come around the owner and help them grow this company of significance and implement the value acceleration methodology.
And so your dad, I believe, bought the company when it was maybe fledgling, and
Yeah,
you've
it was.
really exponentially grown it. Yeah.
Yeah, so we bought it in 2012. I took some of the proceeds, if you will, from the sale of my company. Dad took some of the capital he had. And at the time, interesting kind of twist, right, is that Dad is and was a certified exit planning advisor working on the business side, a business management consultant, a growth consultant. He became a CEPA because he thought something was missing in his practice, right? He certainly didn't have the personal financial planning. And then there's this whole other concept, right, of personal planning, these three legs of the stool that lead us towards more significant or a successful exit. And so Dad became a CEPA. It was the CEPA certificate number 93. So now we have 7,000 CEPAs. So kind of an interesting journey for Dad. But
Mm-hmm.
when I came in to Dad's consulting company, I thought Dad had back, if you rewind all the way to 2010, the exit planning space was very conceptual. We didn't have a process or a methodology. And Dad, being a consultant and really former Price Waterhouse guy, took the concepts that he was taught at CEPA, wrapped a process and a methodology around it so that it could live in the business owner's company every single day. And it became almost like another operating system that they might run that was focused on long-term value. And I think what we both saw, even in my own exit, was that the advisors were coming in very different silos, right? They weren't coming as one unified team. And so 2012, yeah, we flipped the script. We buy the Exit Planning Institute with 120 certified exit planning advisors, and then implemented the value acceleration methodology and have been growing over the last, I guess 12 or so years. And so really successful ride. But it was what Dad brought to the table back in 2012 was a methodology in a way that brought everybody together.
And are you finding that the value acceleration
Yep.
methodology is becoming like a business operating system for some practitioners or some companies?
Yeah, no, I think so. The one cool thing about having more CEPAs enter the marketplace is that you're getting to test drive the methodology. I think it's kind of a cool thing about being a part of the exit planning profession is that we learn and grow together. So although Dad laid the foundation, now we're all kind of contributing it along the way because more and more owners are actually taking that all in. So on the pre-show, if you will, you and I were talking about we had 5 people start today. And when we had 5 new employees start at EPI, we try to add to the way they've been thinking. So if they've been in business for a while, they've worked likely for at least 1 or 2 or 3 companies. And I think that they have a way, an operating system, but I think most operating systems, again, tie their metrics or their big rocks to success, short-term successes and wins. And so, yeah, I think that now with people adopting it as long-term value creation conversations, it's just a different way, I think, for many owners to be thinking and many employees. So yes, short answer is yes. I think folks are adopting that way of doing business and that really mentality shift more so than ever before.
And so I gather you've probably applied this methodology within your own company.
Yeah,
With
yeah,
eating your own dog food, as we say. Yes.
yeah, right. I mean, if you're going to be the Exit Planning Institute, a privately held company, they're likely going to look at me and Dad and say, "Well, what's your exit plan?" And
Right.
so, absolutely, I could tell you is I have the benefit, I guess. I said my book one day will be growing up through the value acceleration methodology because when I started my first business at 15 or 16 years old, though we didn't call it value acceleration back then, one of my biggest mentors was always my dad. And then when we came into our company today, Exit Planning Institute, and frankly, around the pandemic, really 2019, 2020, we came to a company size that made it even more meaningful to start practicing value acceleration every single day. And now it's like it's woven into really who we are. So now you can imagine you have 35 plus employees thinking income and value. I think it certainly helps with the employee retention that we have, and certainly the growth that we have. But not, yeah, it's allowed Dad, who's 65 years old, to concentrate on personal planning, and he did a lot of estate planning over the last couple of years. We've been having regular family meetings. So yeah, nonetheless, it is a huge part of what we do at EPI for sure, and we get to test drive it all on our own company.
So tell the listeners a little bit about what the value acceleration methodology is.
Sure.
I know it's a complex visual for
Sure.
those who have it in
Yeah.
front of them. And but without the visual, how do you explain the different components or
Yeah.
elements of the system
Yeah,
and
sure. And I would invite anybody to go to ownerreadiness.com. If you go there, you can see all kinds of these different concepts that we teach in a little bit more digestible forms. Yeah, the methodology is a little bit more complex. But I would say from an owner's perspective, it really boils down for me to 2 major things. One, in every owner's life, there are 3 elements that we're always trying to blend or balance. We call them the 3 legs of the stool. And if you can imagine a 3-legged stool, right? If one of the legs was kind of lopped off, it would never sit straight up. And if one was longer or shorter than the other, it would be a wobbly stool at best. And so I think the 3 key components that we need to kind of blend and align are business, personal, and financial. So at the heart of it, the value acceleration methodology becomes a process to help manage those 3 legs of the stool and make sure they're in alignment at any given time over the course of you being a business owner, which leads me to the 2 concurrent paths. It's the other thing that I think is critical to note inside of the methodology. I think as business owners, we are taught through books, podcasts, advisors, teachers, mentors, that as owners, we need to get out of our business. Instead of working in the business, we hear all the time that we need to be working on the business, right? They're asking us to be more strategic, more visionary, better leaders. What you don't hear a lot about is they're saying, Scott, you got to stop living in your life and also be able to work on your life. Who are you in addition to being an entrepreneur? How does your personal financial plan relate to that? Because at the end of the day, as you and I know, our business, though the largest asset in our personal financial portfolio, is simply that. It's certainly an operating entity, but it's really another asset inside of our portfolio. So how are we blending them together to run 2 concurrent paths, not just one? I think the one that most owners run in their life every day is a business path. But the value acceleration methodology would teach us that we're running on 2 paths, a business path and a personal financial path that bleeds those three legs of the stools together. So if you looked across it at any given time, there's a discover gate, a prepare gate, and a decide gate. We spend most of our careers as business owners in the discover and prepare gate until we're actually ready to execute a transition, either to an internal or external buyer. That's when we enter the decide gate. But it's a way to blend and balance those three legs of the stool. It's a way to keep value top of mind, and some of maybe different than other operating systems, if you will. It really takes those numbers that we look at every single day and applies them to long-term value and then personal financial planning. So it's just a kind of a slight change in mindset, if you will.
What would you describe as some of the biggest challenges in applying it in your own family business?
Yeah, I would say so. That's a great family business too for me. There's always a little bit of an extra thing that you have to have there as a family-owned business. From a family-owned side, it's regular communication. Dad and I do it every single day. We're literally just sitting at Dad's lake house, and although Dad's pretty decentralized, if you will, from the company. He had said, "Look, I wanna take the month of August and the month of December off." And so, what does that look like, and how do we make that happen? But regular communication is absolutely critical. I think the biggest thing that any owner, maybe two things. One, it's a mindset shift. So I kind of jokingly said the book I'll write one day it will be growing up through the value acceleration methodology. So I don't really think in any other way than that. But you take a very successful business owner that might be Dad's age that has grown a successful company, and then you say, hey, look, you're 65, you want to exit in the next 3 to 5 years. Over those 3 to 5 years, I want to totally blow your mind and change your mindset to think about value acceleration and value in personal financial planning. So I just think change is difficult. So a change in mindset is always a little bit of a struggle. And then once you kind of get into the value acceleration methodology, relinquishing control and decentralizing yourself from your own business, I think is very difficult. And I think naturally, I don't think it's bad or good. I just think it's just something that we have to get right with. I tell you the story about Dad wanting to take the months of August and December off because that's still a struggle, being totally 100% away from his baby, his business, is difficult. And we're not going to necessarily do the same things or the same way that Dad would do them. So we might hit the same goals or even better, but we'll go after them in a different way. So I just think knowing that in order to create significant value in your company and blend and balance those three legs of the stool, decentralizing yourself from your own company and empowering other people to run and grow it, I think is a significant challenge. But those are the two things that kind of come to mind for me.
And so, as you look back on your path to becoming president, first of all, what were the different roles that you had in this business going back to 2010 when it was just a consulting firm? I mean, what was your path like to becoming president? Yeah. So,
no, I came into Dad's consulting president as like a business development and growth strategy guy, right? He back with Dad and his business partner, Andy, they said, look, we need somebody to help grow our practice here locally in Cleveland, Ohio, where we're from. When we came into EPI, it was a similar mindset. I've always been kind of a visionary growth kind of entrepreneur. We came in and we had a guy at the time running the operations side of the business, which we called an executive director. Now this is a team of one, right? So the second employee comes in, it's me, and they made me the vice president. So I oversaw our operations team, if you will, and then implemented our growth strategy. And I held that role for a long time, I think in part because Dad is always and you might probably have clients like this as well. Maybe some owners listening can catch this vibe, is that Dad said you always had to do the job before you get the job. And so although I might have been acting in my more mature years as president, it took a lot to relinquish a president's title and give that over to me. So I ran, in 2012, we buy the business. 2014, we moved the business from Chicago, which it was founded and being operated out of, home here to Cleveland, Ohio, where I took over all of the business. And I said, Dad, if I'm going to go in and run this full time for our partnership, I want to be able to create my own team and get this thing really going. And so 2014, we bring that over. So from 2014 all the way up until about, I think it was like 2021, I was the vice president. And I think what really turned dad was how we pivoted through the pandemic and what we were really building. And so I think it was June of 2021 when dad and we announced that I was officially the president of the company. And then over the last 3 years, we've really just focused on decentralizing dad from the business. And this year, we're actually working on decentralizing me from the business, bringing in a new president, and me going to CEO and dad going to chairman, if you will. And so another huge, family transition for EPI. But nonetheless, yeah, it's my journey to become president was maybe like many family businesses, right, where you really have to work your tail off to get there, and there's a lot of proof in what you're doing. But if you, to my dad's credit, I had even though I had sold a business, I sold like a small micro market company, and I had a degree in horticulture, and I was running a landscape management firm, right? So now he's like, okay, now let's run this professional education company. And so it was a huge change, certainly for me in all ways, shapes, and forms. So it's an interesting journey to become president, but it was very fulfilling. I actually can appreciate dad waiting to do it to the right time.
Were there inflection points inside the business or outside in terms of the market, the number of CEPAs that you had that made the decision like an obvious one? Now it's time to move Scott into president, and
Yeah, I
here's
think
the announcement. Or I mean,
I
how
think if
did
our
that?
advisors were sitting here, and then if my dad were sitting here, and we've certainly talked about it before, but I think the inflection point was the COVID pandemic pivot.
Mhm.
And it was, I think for my dad, there was two things that really stuck out, I think, for him as an owner. So can you imagine, right? We're a company that has 100% in-person programming. We have 340 people that had signed up for a 2020 in-person credentialing class where you'd come to one city across the United States that we had. We had 11 training centers, and you would come in for a week. In February, had 340 people signed up to come to some spring class, and then pandemic hits, and all of the training centers get shut down. So you have 340 people waiting to earn their credentials, starting to ask for refunds, and everybody's kind of in a little bit of a panic. And I can remember sitting right outside my office here. There's a big bullpen area where we have our stand-up big company-wide meetings. Dad being in the office that day because we had talked about, hey, we had to shut down our next 3 programs. And oh, by the way, we're going to go move into a virtual work environment because we can't show up at the office anymore either. I think in that moment, Dad kind of said, like, crap, I'm not as involved in the business from a day to day to even really know how to pivot this thing because Scott and the leadership team are here every day. So I don't even know what to really do. I think it was that point where he's like, I've always been a great mentor and coach, but I quite literally can't help you right now other than maybe some high level mentoring advice. You got to take this thing and you got to do something because we're in a pretty bad spot. In March and April of 2020, we had zero revenue, but as you can imagine, all of our expenses were there. And so in 45 days, we took the in-person CEPA program and creatively changed it into this virtual 3-layered learning experience. And we knew we didn't want to do a bunch of Zoom calls, right? So we had a film crew come in, and me and dad invested probably upwards of $300,000 in creating this course during a time where we had no revenue. And so we pivot that whole thing. We get 240 people into the first virtual class. And then that opened us up to all different kinds of markets. So then as you got through the pandemic and we got it behind us, we were able to become a little bit more visionary and creative and really start to evolve this learning experience. And now, 2,600 people will become CEPAs this year and through that virtual platform. And then have a virtual community, not even just in the United States, but now we're in 19 different countries. So you can learn and grow from each other because as business owners, regardless of what country you're in, we all have similar characteristics and attributes. So I think it was, that's why I think after we got through the pandemic and then got into 21, not only did he see how I, pivoted the business, but how I with the team did it. So not only did I have we had a nice running company, but we had great people behind it. So I think not only did he see me, but he said, oh man, Scott has actually really built like a really great leadership team. Yeah. And I would also to round that out, the pandemic, and we talk a lot about culture and people. The pandemic really ripped down who we were as EPI and quite literally kind of rewrote who we were. We took the core values off the wall, put new ones up. We went through some pretty deep dive transformational leadership training. And I would also think that that was a big part of what Dad saw as well. So quite literally, after I became president, we announced a brand new and informal executive leadership team that is all still intact today. So I think those, as both a father, a business partner, and the CEO, were some tangible things. Like, even though I don't know if they were written down, like in your performance review, like, Scott, if you accomplish X, Y, and Z, you'll get this pay raise and become the president, and have these cool new responsibilities and accountability factors. But it was kind of just, he saw it happening and he saw us pivot, and then we stayed flat in terms of revenue 2019 to 2020. So we didn't lose, although we lost some net profits. We were able to kind of grow back. And then after that, 2021, we kind of J curved. And so I think those are kind of the contributing factors to saying, look, I think it's time.
So tell us about what you see in the future for your business.
Great
2,600
question.
grads today. I mean,
Yeah.
undoubtedly you have a big, hairy, audacious goal, a BHAG.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
Vern Harnish's Mastering the Rockefeller Habits was one of the first business books that I read. So we certainly have something along the lines of that. I've certainly been very influenced by other authors, mentors, and leaders along the way. But yeah, I would say we just talked about this morning. So we have a 3-year strategy that we're really tied to. We want to have 10,000 certified exit planning advisors in the market and be at 55 employees. And so those kind of two big numbers are kind of where we're heading over the next 3. And why they're impactful is that I think if I get to that, or we get to the EPI community to that 10,000 CEPA mark, I think that we could truly be having some impact and have some great data coming back to us where we can learn, grow, and evolve. When you look at that professional credentialing number and turn it to equivalent type of credentials like CPA or CFP, a certified financial planner, there are about 600,000 CPAs in the world today, or in the country today. And there's about 100,000 certified financial planners. So even at 10,000, we're just scraping the surface. So my big, hairy, audacious goal would probably is something around the fact of that goes back to where we started our conversation, success and significance. I think the way of doing business in the future, from now and into the future, is you have to have a certified exit planning advisor on your team. I don't think everybody on the team needs to be a CEPA, but there has to be a CEPA that brings that holistic living and holistic mindset and changes the way a business owner thinks and operate, thus changing the way employees operate. Can you imagine if your employees could all be thinking like business owners along the way, how much more prosperous and successful your company would be, but how much prosperous the American economy could be if we have successful transitioning businesses along the way. And so I think that's where we're heading. A great opportunity in January to go speak at the U.S. Senate, a pretty wild opportunity. And we spoke in front of 19 U.S. senators at the U.S. Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship, where the theme of their hearing was around wealth preservation and exit planning. And so I think it's getting the attention of the folks across the board now outside of the exit planning profession. And I think the best is really yet to come. And so I think that CEPA becomes an equivalent credential to that of CFP or CPA, and it becomes a pure role on the team, advisory team for an owner.
Interesting. I've have long talked about business owners needing a business owner advisory team, which is an acronym for a boat. And I've had in that boat the business coach, because the business coach is on the value creation side, a lawyer or an attorney, an accountant, typically a CPA, because they're on the value distribution and value like protection, and then a wealth manager who would be compounding the value.
100%.
So my question is the CEPA and the business coach, are they one and the same, or are these different people that need to be both in the boat? What are your thoughts on it? And how does a CEPA differ from an EOS implementer or scaling up coach or growth coach?
100%. I think it's one of the biggest struggles. You nailed like one of the biggest struggles that I think we're having in the markets. So as more people enter the market, more owners are absorbing the knowledge. There's a little bit of a confusion on what an exit planner is. And so I think an exit planner or a certified exit planning advisor, it could be one of those or all of those. I think every person has a specific role on the team, right? Like I think the top two advisors I think an owner can have is a business consultant focusing on the business path and a financial planner focusing on the personal financial path. You have those, you have the two major paths covered. Then you bring in a business attorney, an estate planning attorney, a family advisor, a risk advisor, a CPA, and the ecosystem, if you will, when you start to change the mindset from income creation to value creation, actually becomes pretty robust team of advisors. So I don't know if everybody is a CEPA on that team, but I think one of those specific advisors needs to bring the CEPA mentality to the table.
Right.
And so what's then becomes confusing is that the CEPA is your business consultant, is your financial advisor, or they might be both. One of them will kind of quarterback the entire thing for you. They'll become like a relationship manager or a project manager for the value acceleration methodology. And any of those advisors that are trained and hold the CEPA credential can certainly manage that. But I think many owners in particular think about an exit planner as a business consultant that's going to help them grow value and position their business for an eventual transition. And although I think many business consultants are the exit planner, I do think the personal financial planner is also the exit planner because they're managing the owner's wealth gap. And so I think that's kind of the confusing part for many along the way is, well, what is an exit planner? Is that an additional role on the team, or is that just another feather in the cap that these advisors should have? So I would say it's a feather in the cap of the advisors that you currently have because it evolves the way they're thinking so that they can cross communicate and collaborate better, and we can all be driving down one path. I think again, the story that we told earlier, when Dad became a CEPA in 2008, it was like, you're the business consultant, you're going to run this lane. I'm the financial advisor, I'm going to run this lane, but I never cross over and learn anything about anything else. So even though Dad's driving value back in 2008, he's not talking to the financial advisor, and the financial advisor say 10 million. This guy needs 20 million in order to actually retire and move to the next act. So now that changes the conversation. Or you take some of the personal planning, right? The story I always tell is there's this guy that sold a business $32 million gross. One of our CEPAs said, Scott, I need you to give this guy a call because he's bored out of his friggin' mind. I need you to talk to him about the stuff that you teach us. And I told him about my 10 a.m. stand-up meetings, and I'm always really excited on a Monday morning meeting to get everybody together. And he said, yeah, you want to know what I'm doing right now? And I'm like, yeah, what are you doing? He's like, I'm standing playing pool. I'm playing billiards in my boxer shorts. I got nothing to do. It's Thursday. My phone's not ringing. I'm divorced. My kids are older and out of the house. I really regret selling my company. So now you add the personal planning people into it as well. But nonetheless, I don't know if CEPA is the specific role on the team. It's really a mentality and a way that the advisors think. And so having one person on that team that can kind of guide that journey, I think is absolutely critical.
And let's just like sort of an asterisk here.
Mm-hmm.
This is germane to family businesses that are just passing on to the next generation as well.
Absolutely.
Right. It's not about exiting and going through a sale to private equity or a financial or strategic buyer. This is about transitioning from one person or set of people to another person and a set of people.
I think by running the value acceleration methodology, you're spot on. You actually provide multiple options. Mm-hmm. So you could take my business, EPI, for example. I think that we could certainly do a family tradition. I own 49% right now. Dad owns 51%, so I could buy some of his shares.
Yeah.
It also opens us up to hybrid exits. So how can I buy some of Dad's share? Maybe I buy 25% and I bring in a private equity group to buy the other 25%. I think that we could do some form of an employee buyout, maybe a formal ESOP, maybe just the other 25% is split against the other 6 executive leaders and they all buy in as almost like a management buyout. Mm-hmm. I think that we could potentially sell to private equity. We could sell to another financial buyer. I think you're spot on. It's not about internal or external. It's about having options all along the way, which is another big mentality shift for business owners, right? Although you might be in a family business, I think a lot of times in family business, you see this like forced intergenerational transition where I think one of the options that could be provided to an owner is, hey, maybe the next generation doesn't want to run a professional education company. Maybe they want to take the wealth that you created in it and then go start or buy a company they're really passionate about doing. So it's really about the wealth vehicle, not necessarily about the operating entity that's the Exit Planning Institute. But again, I think that that's the name of the game. It's about having multiple bites of the apple or multiple opportunities along the way and being prepared for what's best for you at that time in your life.
So I made mention in your bio up front that you're also the operating partner of Snider Premier Growth, which is a
Yeah.
small family investment company.
Yeah.
Is this a like your own version of a family office? And
Yeah, I would say it's like a very mini. It's the start of what I think a family office might look like for the Snider family.
Mhm.
It allows us to take some of the money that we're making in EPI. Obviously, we're like many business owners, probably, where the best place to reinvest money, right, is into your own business. We try
Right.
to take some of that out and invest into other things that we might be passionate about. We invest in some things that our employees are passionate about. So we
Mhm.
might take one of our directors and say, look, I want to and investigate my entrepreneurial journey. So if we bought a XYZ company, would you guys invest in it with me? It allows us to do some of that. It allows us to do some charitable stuff, and then some fun projects. And so you'll see some of those fun projects kind of become public next year in 2025, nevertheless. But yeah, it's like an opportunity for us to take wealth created in other avenues and bring it into other operating entities, real estate, businesses, charitable stuff,
Good, good,
marketing and branding initiatives, things of that nature.
good for you. All
Yeah.
right. So as we wrap up here, I have been in and around the Exit Planning Institute for, oh gosh, a number of years now.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Yep.
many, but I'm running into more and more CEPAs. And
Yeah.
obviously you're gaining traction. And obviously you're a fraction of the size of the CPA or the certified financial planner market still at this point. Um, how do we know, or how do you know that it's gaining traction in the marketplace? That people are actually deploying what they're learning as
Mm-hmm.
CEPAs into client companies. Are you able to get any kind of measurement of that? Because I think
100%.
ultimately that's what really matters,
That's
right?
what matters, right? Yeah, I totally agree. Dad and we had a real reason we bought EPI is that we had a passion for helping business owners, and the way we thought would be the best is again to educate the advisor so that they went out and approach the owner in the right way. And so I would say two things. One, yes, we're gathering data from the companies that our advisors are working with every day. So that's our next biggest research project is seeing how impactful the value acceleration methodology has been. I would go back though to the 2023 State of Owner Readiness Survey and investigate the 10 years of State of Owner Readiness. We did a big national survey in 2013, did another one at the end of 2023, and the education and awareness levels of business owners are wildly different than 10 years ago. And
Hmm.
I'd like to think, right, in part, it's because they're involved with and learning from our CEPAs or from EPI overall or from podcasts like this, where this is just being discussed about it. And the nice thing about having a good brand and a great EPI community of advisors, CEPAs and not, is that when an owner might be Googling this kind of stuff online, they're likely finding the Exit Planning Institute and the Certified Exit Planning Advisor. So they're learning along the way. But I would say notably, it's something like when we asked the business owners 10 years ago, is exit planning one of your top priorities? Only 6% of them said it was. Today, 60% say that it's one of my top priorities. And that's in
Wow.
part because they know more about it. So they're like, yeah, I got to get this stuff implemented. And so if you looked at that report, you could see those statistics drastically swing. And you can't say, now, I don't know if there's anything that points directly to saying that's EPI or that's a CEPA, but I would like to think that it is because of the impact our community has had over those 10 years that people are just more aware and starting to implement. I want a deeper and more direct data about how it's actually affected their companies. We collect case studies every year, but doing a full blown, I think that's probably one of our next books is a series of interviews with business owners who have embraced the value acceleration methodology and thus have had a successful transition, to your point, internal or external along the way.
Yeah. And so you hired three marketing people today.
We
Um,
did.
and so getting the word out about exit planning, about the CEPA, where's the focus of that marketing effort going to go over the next few years? If you have that
Mm-hmm. Yep,
strategy laid out,
we
like,
do. Yeah.
is it partnerships? Is it,
Yeah.
is it publicity
Yeah. It's
Fortune
both.
and Forbes and, where it's
And
going to go.
so, yeah, I would say that it may be twofold. A lot of it is to support the current strategy that we have and that's growing. For example, we have a brand new social media coordinator that's coordinating all the social media for all 33 of our EPI chapters, right?
Hmm.
So getting the word out there, flooding those chapters with the right individuals. They also do business owners forum. They do regional research. So there's a whole beast that we've created inside of this chapter network, which is almost like a business within a business. So a lot of the focus is in supporting the stuff that they're doing. The other folks that we hired were our content production people and managers. So continuing to produce content, large form, long form, short term, short form, and producing it on all these different platforms to continuously get the word out. And then I would say the strategic initiative is, what do business owners truly think about EPI and the use of a certified exit planning advisor? And how can we take some of those marketing tactics and strategies and go direct to the owner so that the future of EPI becomes almost where we're marrying these highly educated and trained advisors with highly educated business owners so that they come together as a team a lot easier than they might even do today. Without doubt, I think one of the biggest hurdles that a CEPA has is how educated is the owner inside of the value acceleration methodology? How much education am I going to have to do with them to just get them going? And so some of those marketing folks are strategic thrusts towards getting to the business owner market a little bit more directly.
Scott, it's been great having you on the show.
Thanks. Really appreciate it, man.
It'd be interesting if we catch up again in another 3 years where things are at.
Yeah.
I expect a few more gray hairs by then.
Yeah, something for sure. They're already coming in the beard for sure.
Exactly. So,
Thanks, man.
yeah, folks, if people want to learn more, do they just Google Exit Planning
Yeah, if you
Institute?
just Google, I would say maybe 2 or 3 things real quick. Google Exit Planning Institute will pop up right there. Go on LinkedIn, type in Scott Snider. You'll see all kinds of stories that I share there, or just go to ownerreadiness.com. It'll take you to the whole exit planning community.
Right. Scott, thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks. Appreciate
Folks,
it,
you
man.
know the drill. If you got some good value from this, share it with other business owners that could benefit from this show. Give us a good rating on your podcast listening application of choice, and stay tuned for future episodes of the Disruptive Successor Show.
This podcast is sponsored by myself, Jonathan Goldhill, and my company, the Goldhill Group, where we provide coaching for growing companies. I'm Jonathan Goldhill, and my purpose is simple: to guide entrepreneurial leaders in family businesses towards more freedom and fulfillment. I want entrepreneurs to get clarity around the changes that will make them and their businesses more successful so they can experience the same freedom I've enjoyed in my life. Our proven practices challenge business owners to think differently about their business and how they're running it, and quite literally become game changers in our clients' companies. Learn more at thegoldhillgroup.com website, where you can schedule your free strategy session. Thank you for joining us on the Disruptive Successor Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, review, and share with a friend who would benefit from the message. If you're interested in picking up a copy of my book, Disruptive Successor, go to disruptivesuccessor.com.